The church was packed for my father's funeral. Jonathan Barrett had been a pillar of the community, building Barrett Construction from a small residential contractor to the largest commercial developer in 3 states. Everyone who mattered was there. Business associates, politicians, family friends, all paying their respects to a man who had built an empire worth over $75 million from nothing. I stood quietly near the casket, accepting condolences with my sister Kate. We both dropped everything to come home when Dad had his heart attack, though we'd arrived too late to say goodbye. Kate had flown in from her surgical residency in Boston, while I'd left my architectural firm in Chicago. We'd always been close, united by our shared grief after Mom died when we were teenagers and now by the loss of our father. "How are you holding up, Rachel?" Kate whispered as another group of mourners moved past. "I'm managing," I replied, though the truth was I felt numb. Dad and I had always been close. As the daughter who followed him into the construction industry, albeit as an architect rather than a developer, we'd shared a special bond. Kate squeezed my hand as our cousin Michael approached, his wife Vanessa at his side. Michael was Uncle Robert's son, and he'd been working at Barrett Construction since college. While Kate and I had pursued our own paths, Michael had positioned himself as Dad's right hand and apparent successor. Rachel, Kate, Michael embraced us with practiced sympathy. "Your father was like a second father to me. This is devastating for all of us." There was something performative about his grief that set my teeth on edge, but I pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't the time. "Thank you for handling the arrangements," I said. Dad had suffered his heart attack at the office, and Michael had taken charge of everything while Kate and I were traveling home. Of course, Michael nodded solemnly. Jonathan would have expected nothing less. In fact, he'd been preparing me to take over more responsibilities. We'd been discussing my eventually taking the CEO position. I blinked in surprise. This was the first I'd heard of any succession plan favoring Michael. Dad had always been tight-lipped about his business decisions, but this seemed like something he would have mentioned. "I'm sure we'll all have time to discuss the company after we've had a chance to grieve," Kate interjected smoothly, ever the diplomat. Michael's expression hardened slightly. "Actually, there are some matters that can't wait. I've scheduled a family meeting at the house after the reception. The lawyers will be there." After the burial, mourners gathered at my father's sprawling Victorian home on Lakeview Drive. The house where Kate and I had grown up was now filled with visitors eating catered food and sharing stories about Dad. I moved through the rooms in a daze, accepting condolences and trying to process that he was really gone. "Rachel," a familiar voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Martin Chen, Dad's longtime friend and the architect who had first inspired my career choice. "Martin, thank you for coming." We embraced, and I felt tears threatening again. Martin had been a fixture in our lives, almost family. "Jonathan was so proud of you," he said, his voice gentle. "He told everyone about your Chicago firm and the awards you've won." I smiled through my tears. We were working on a project together, actually, a community center downtown. Dad was providing the land and financing, and I was designing it. Martin looked surprised. I hadn't heard about that. We were keeping it quiet until the plans were finalized. Dad wanted it to be his legacy project: affordable housing, community spaces, a medical clinic. We were going to break ground next spring. Before Martin could respond, Michael appeared, announcing that the family meeting would begin in Dad's study. I excused myself and made my way through the house, finding Kate already seated in one of the leather chairs facing Dad's massive oak desk. Michael had positioned himself in Dad's chair, with his wife standing beside him. 2 men in suits, lawyers presumably, stood nearby. "Now that we're all here," Michael began once I'd taken a seat, "we can address some urgent matters. As you know, Jonathan was the sole owner of Barrett Construction and all its subsidiaries. With his unexpected passing, there are decisions that need to be made immediately to ensure business continuity." One of the lawyers stepped forward. "I'm James Wilson, the corporate counsel for Barrett Construction. In the absence of a formally executed will—" "Wait," I interrupted. "What do you mean, absence of a will?" "Dad definitely had a will. He updated it every few years." Michael cleared his throat. "Unfortunately, there was an accident last week. Jonathan had his estate documents out for review, and well, there was a fire in the fireplace. A draft caught some papers. The will was destroyed." I stared at him in disbelief, and there were no copies. With the lawyers or anywhere else? Your father preferred to keep his personal affairs private, Wilson explained. He kept the original in his home safe. We were scheduled to review it this coming week, but Kate leaned forward. This doesn't make sense. Dad was meticulous about everything, especially legal matters. Grief can be disorienting, Michael said with practiced sympathy. The important thing now is to establish interim leadership for the company. As the senior executive and Jonathan's closest male relative, I'm prepared to step in as acting CEO until more permanent arrangements can be made. The second lawyer distributed folders. We've prepared these interim management agreements. Essentially, they authorize Michael to manage all Barrett family assets and business interests while the estate is settled. Without a will, this process could take some time. I opened the folder and skimmed the document, my suspicion growing with every paragraph. The agreement would effectively give Michael complete control over Dad's entire estate. The company, properties, investments, everything. And if we don't sign? Kate asked, always direct. Michael's smile tightened. Without clear authority, the company could face operational paralysis. Projects would stall, contracts could be jeopardized, and the value of the estate, your inheritance, could be significantly diminished. I closed the folder. We need time to review this with our own lawyers. Of course, Michael nodded magnanimously, but I should mention that there are several major deals in progress that require immediate attention. Any delay could be costly. We'll have our answer tomorrow, I said firmly. For now, I think we've had enough business talk for a funeral day. As the meeting broke up, I caught Wilson giving Michael a subtle nod. Something wasn't right, and I needed to find out what before signing anything. That evening, after most of the mourners had left, Kate and I sat in the kitchen of our childhood home, trying to make sense of the day's events. There's no way Dad's will just happen to burn up right before he died, Kate said, expressing exactly what I'd been thinking. And there's no way he didn't have copies, I added. Michael is lying. Kate rubbed her temples. But why? Dad treated Michael like a son. He was already going to inherit something substantial. I thought about Michael's ambition, how he'd always wanted to be seen as Dad's successor. Maybe substantial wasn't enough. Maybe he wanted everything. What do we do? We can't prove anything, and without the will? I stood up, suddenly remembering something important. Dad took me to his bank last month. He showed me his safe deposit box and made sure I knew how to access it. He said it was just in case. Kate's eyes widened. Do you think? I don't know, but it's worth checking. The bank opens at 9 o'clock tomorrow. The next morning, we arrived at First National Bank as soon as it opened. The manager, recognizing us as Jonathan Barrett's daughters, expressed his condolences before escorting us to the vault area. Your father was one of our most valued clients, he explained as he located the correct box. He maintained several accounts and this safe deposit box for over 30 years. He used his key, and I used the key Dad had given me. The box slid out, and my heart raced as the manager discreetly left us alone with its contents. Inside were several sealed envelopes, a USB drive, and a leather portfolio. The largest envelope was labeled Last While and Testament, Copias held by Greenwood Law Offices. I knew it, Kate whispered as I opened the envelope. The will was comprehensive and crystal clear. Dad had left 30% of Barrett Construction to me, 30% to Kate, 20% to Michael, and 10% to a charitable foundation he'd established in my mother's name. He'd named me as CEO, citing my architectural vision and business acumen, with provisions for Kate to remain on the board despite her medical career. But that wasn't all. The leather portfolio contained detailed plans for the community center project I'd mentioned to Martin, complete with funding allocations, land deeds, and architectural renderings I created. Dad had already transferred the downtown property and $25 million in development funds to a separate LLC that was jointly owned by him and me. The USB drive contained years of company records, including evidence that Michael had been systematically diverting company resources to side projects that benefited him personally, not enough to be immediately noticeable, but substantial over time. He didn't just want to control the company, I realized aloud. He needed to cover up what he'd been doing. Kate squeezed my hand. What's our next move? I thought of Michael sitting in Dad's chair, so confident in his scheme. We go to the meeting he's arranged and bring some guests of our own. That afternoon, Michael greeted us with barely concealed impatience as we entered Dad's study. He had the signed management agreements laid out on the desk, pens at the ready. "Have you made your decision?" he asked. "As I mentioned, we have pressing matters requiring immediate attention." "We have," I replied calmly. "But before we sign anything, we'd like to introduce some people." On cue, the study door opened. Martin Chen entered, followed by an elegant older woman I knew was Dad's personal attorney, Sophia Greenwood. Behind them came two members of the Barrett Construction Board of Directors. Michael's expression flickered between confusion and alarm. "What is this?" "This," I said, placing Dad's will on the desk, "is a copy of our father's actual will. The one you knew existed because he'd reviewed it with all his senior executives last year." Color drained from Michael's face. "Where did you?" "Dad kept copies in his safe deposit box," Kate explained, "along with some very interesting company records." Sophia Greenwood stepped forward. "As Jonathan Barrett's personal attorney, I can confirm this is his most recent will, properly executed and witnessed. I hold the official copy in my firm's records." Michael's corporate lawyer Wilson looked stunned. "I was told there was no will, that everything had been destroyed in an accident." "There was no accident," I said, my voice steady despite my anger. "Michael lied to you, to us, and planned to seize control of everything our father built." "These are serious accusations," Michael blustered, but his confidence was visibly crumbling. "I was only trying to ensure business continuity during a difficult time. By presenting false documents and attempting to defraud the rightful heirs." Sophia asked sharply. "That's not continuity, that's criminal." One of the board members, Janet Forrest, spoke up. "The board will need to address this immediately. Michael's actions represent a serious breach of fiduciary duty." Michael looked desperately around the room, finding no allies. "This is a misunderstanding. I was only acting in the family's best interests." "And the funds you diverted to Pinnacle Ventures?" I asked, referencing information from the USB drive. "Was that in the family's best interest too?" His face went completely white. "How did you?" "Dad knew," Kate said quietly. "He was gathering evidence. That's probably why he made sure we could access the safe deposit box." For the next hour, the true extent of Michael's betrayal unfolded. He'd not only planned to hijack the entire company but had been embezzling funds for years. Dad had suspected but had been gathering concrete proof before confronting him. As the meeting concluded, Michael and his wife were escorted from the property by security. The board members called an emergency session, and Sophia began the formal process of executing Dad's will. Left alone in the study with Kate, I finally let my guard down. "I can't believe he would do this. Dad trusted him." Kate put her arm around me. "Dad also protected against it. He made sure we had what we needed to expose the truth." I nodded, glancing around the study that held so many memories. My eyes fell on the architectural plans for the community center, Dad's legacy project, now my responsibility to complete. "What will you do about the CEO position?" Kate asked. "Dad named you in the will, but you have your own firm in Chicago." I traced my fingers over the community center designs. "I think it's time to come home. Dad built something important here. He trusted me to carry it forward." 1 month later, I stood on the vacant downtown lot where the Barrett Community Center would soon rise. Construction equipment was already in place for the groundbreaking ceremony scheduled for the following day. The project had expanded to include not just affordable housing and a medical clinic, but also an educational center for construction and architectural training for underprivileged youth. Michael had been removed from the company and was facing criminal charges for embezzlement. He and Vanessa had left town, their carefully crafted social standing in ruins. Kate had returned to Boston but planned to split her time between her medical career and her board responsibilities. We discovered that Dad had been quietly funding a medical research initiative in Mom's name at Kate's hospital, another piece of his legacy neither of us had known about. As the sun began to set over the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace washing over me. Dad had prepared us better than we'd ever known, not just with assets and legal protections, but with the values and skills to continue what he'd started. "We're ready for tomorrow's ceremony, Ms. Barrett," my project manager called from across the lot. "Thank you, David," I replied, taking one last look at the empty space that would soon transform into Dad's final gift to the community. "I think we're ready for everything now." In my pocket was the key to Dad's safe deposit box, a reminder that sometimes the most important inheritances aren't just what's visible to others, but the foresight, wisdom, and love that remain long after someone is gone. Michael had been so focused on controlling the company that he completely missed the true wealth Dad had built, not just in assets, but in relationships, respect, and vision for the future. While my cousin had schemed for what he could take, Dad had been quietly planning what he could give. Standing there on the threshold of that future, I silently thanked my father for his final lesson. True legacy isn't measured in dollars or property deeds, but in the positive change we create and the wisdom we pass on. Michael had tried to steal an inheritance, but he could never touch the real wealth Dad had left us, the opportunity to continue making a difference in the world he loved.
The words still echoed in my head as I stood outside Hamilton Tower, staring up at the gleaming glass building that housed Hamilton Industries headquarters. "You're worthless, Amanda. A disappointment. Get out of my sight." That was yesterday. Today I held the property deed to not just this building, but every major office complex the Hamilton family owned. 5 years of careful planning had led to this moment. My phone buzzed, probably another angry message from my family. They'd been calling non-stop since getting the notice from their property management company this morning. Instead of the usual rent invoice, they'd received a letter announcing new ownership. Shadow Ridge Properties LLC. My company. Ms. Ridge. My assistant Michael appeared beside me. The Hamilton family is demanding an emergency meeting with the new owner. I smiled, straightening my charcoal Armani suit. How fitting. Let's not keep them waiting. Inside the lobby, the security guard did a double take as I walked past. He'd seen me countless times over the years, always dismissed me as the Hamilton disappointment. Now I owned his workplace. "They're in the main conference room," Michael reported. "Your father, brother Thomas, and sister Rebecca." Perfect. I checked my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. Gone was the timid girl they'd berated for studying real estate instead of joining the family business. In her place stood Amanda Ridge, CEO of Shadow Ridge Properties, owner of $4.2 billion in prime commercial real estate. The conference room doors opened to chaos. Dad was red-faced, shouting into his phone about legal action. Thomas paced nervously, his designer suit wrinkled from stress. Rebecca sat frozen, staring at the property transfer documents. "Who the hell are you?" Dad demanded as I entered. "Amanda Ridge," I replied calmly. "Your new landlord." The phone slipped from his hand. "Amanda," Rebecca whispered. "But, you're Amanda Hamilton." I corrected, taking the seat at the head of the table, Dad's usual spot. "I changed it legally when I started Shadow Ridge Properties. 5 years ago, right after you all told me I'd never amount to anything in real estate." "This is impossible," Thomas sputtered. "Where would you get the money to buy these buildings?" I opened my laptop, displaying Shadow Ridge's portfolio. "Remember that worthless degree in real estate development? Turns out it was quite valuable. While you were running Hamilton Industries, I was quietly building the largest commercial real estate firm in the region." "Under a fake name," Dad growled. "A legal name change," I corrected. "I learned from you, Dad. Always control the real estate your business depends on, remember? That's what you taught Thomas and Rebecca. You just never thought I was worth teaching." "You can't do this," Dad slammed his fist on the table. "We have a lease." "Had a lease," I corrected, pulling out more documents. "Which expired last night at midnight." "Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" Rebecca grabbed the papers, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. These are new lease terms. Triple the current rate," I confirmed. "Market value, actually. You've been underpaying for years thanks to Dad's connections with the previous owner." "Previous owner?" Thomas's eyes widened. "Old man Jenkins. You bought him out." I smiled, remembering the day I'd approached Jenkins with my offer. He was quite impressed by my business plan. Said it reminded him of Dad in his younger days before the arrogance set in. "We'll fight this," Dad threatened. "Our lawyers." "Your lawyers can't change property law," I interrupted. "These buildings are mine legally and completely. You can sign the new leases or you can vacate. You have 48 hours to decide." 48 hours? Rebecca looked faint. "We can't move a multinational corporation in 2 days." "Not my problem." I stood smoothing my suit. Oh, and the construction crew arrives tomorrow to begin renovations. Hope you don't mind some noise. Construction. Thomas paled. What construction? Complete modernization of all properties. New facades, updated systems, improved security. I paused. Starting with the executive floor, of course. Your floor. Dad finally found his voice again. You're doing this for revenge. Revenge. I laughed. Dad, I'm doing exactly what you always wanted, maximizing property value and return on investment. Isn't that what you taught them? I gestured to my siblings. While telling me I was worthless? My phone buzzed. Alerts showing Hamilton Industries stock dropping as news of the property situation spread. Your stock's falling, I noted. Investors don't like uncertainty about corporate headquarters. Better decide quickly about those leases. You do this to your own family? Rebecca pleaded. Family. I turned to her. Like when you uninvited me from your wedding because I was embarrassing to explain to your in-laws. Or when Thomas got me blacklisted from real estate firms because I wouldn't join Hamilton Industries. That was business, Thomas defended weakly. Exactly. I headed for the door. This is just business too. Nothing personal. Though the look on your faces is a delightful bonus. Wait, Dad called. What do you really want? I paused at the door. What do I want? I want you to understand something. That worthless daughter you dismissed? She now owns the roof over your head. Every morning when you come to work, you'll enter my building. Every month when you write the rent check, it'll be to my company. And every time you look out these windows at the city skyline, you'll see my name on buildings that used to have yours. You'll regret this, he threatened. No, Dad. The only thing I regret is wasting years trying to earn your approval. I nodded to Michael. Have security escort them out when they're done. And start moving the construction equipment in. I want them to hear every drill, every hammer, every reminder that they're no longer in control. As I walked out, I heard Rebecca burst into tears and Thomas start arguing with Dad about their options. But above it all, I heard the sweet sound of karma. Construction crews already unloading equipment, ready to begin dismantling the Hamilton family's comfort zone. My phone buzzed again. Jenkins, saw the news. Your father must be furious. Livid, I replied. Thanks for keeping our deal quiet. My pleasure. Sometimes the best lessons come from those we underestimate. Looking up at my building, I smiled. Sometimes being called worthless is just the motivation you need to prove exactly how much you're worth. And I was worth every penny of the $4.2 billion it had taken to buy their world out from under them. The next morning, I sat in my new office, formerly Dad's corner suite, watching the construction crews begin their work. The rhythmic pounding of jackhammers provided a perfect soundtrack to the Hamilton family's downfall. Ms. Ridge, Michael entered with a stack of newspapers. You might enjoy today's headlines. Hamilton Industries faces property crisis. Mystery landlord reveals family connection. Amanda Ridge, from disowned daughter to real estate mogul. And this just came in. He handed me a thick envelope. Their lawyer's counterproposal. I skimmed the document, laughing at their desperate attempts to maintain control. They'd offered to buy the buildings back at a 20% premium. Send this response, I dictated to Michael. Thank you for your offer. However, Shadow Ridge Properties is not interested in selling. Your new lease terms remain unchanged. Tick-tock. My phone lit up with messages. Rebecca, please Amanda. We can work something out. Family should mean something. Thomas, this is business suicide. You're destroying everything Dad built. Dad, you want to play hardball? Remember who taught you everything you know. I forwarded them all to my lawyers, then pulled up the security feeds. The Hamilton Industries executive floor was in chaos. Employees dodged falling ceiling tiles as construction crews gutted the outdated infrastructure. In the main conference room, Dad and his board of directors shouted over the noise, desperately trying to formulate a plan. Their stock is down another 15%, Michael reported. Shareholders are demanding answers about the property situation. And the other tenants? Most have already signed the new market rate leases. Only Hamilton Industries is holding out. I smiled, remembering all the times Dad had bragged about his business acumen. How long until their clients start questioning their stability? It's already happening. 3 major accounts called this morning, concerned about the headquarters situation. Perfect. Everything was unfolding exactly as I'd planned. 5 years of careful preparation, of building Shadow Ridge properties in secret, of waiting for their leases to expire, all leading to this moment. A commotion outside caught my attention. Through the glass walls I saw Thomas arguing with security. "Let him in," I instructed. "This should be entertaining." Thomas burst into my office, his expensive suit dusty from the construction debris. "You have to stop this." "Stop what?" I gestured to the crews. "Improving my properties. Isn't that what Dad always preached? Reinvest in your assets." "You know what I mean." He slumped into a chair. "The noise, the disruption, the market uncertainty. You're killing us." "Killing you." I pulled up Hamilton Industries' financial records they didn't know I had. "Your company has been dying for years. Bad investments, outdated technology, overpriced products. The only thing keeping you afloat was Dad's artificially low rent agreement with Jenkins. How did you get those files?" "I learned from the best. Remember when you had me blacklisted? I spent that time learning everything about Hamilton Industries. Every weakness, every vulnerability, every skeleton in your corporate closet." "What do you want?" he demanded. "Money? A position in the company." I laughed. "Thomas, I made more money last year than Hamilton Industries did in the past 5. And as for a position," I gestured to my office, "I'd say I have a pretty good one." "Then why?" "Why?" I stood walking to the window. "Look at that skyline. Every premium building, every prime location now owned by Shadow Ridge Properties. The daughter you all called worthless now controls the very ground you work on." "Dad was wrong," Thomas admitted quietly. "About you. About everything." "Yes, he was." I turned back to him. "And now he gets to learn that lesson every time he writes a rent check." My phone buzzed. The property management company, Hamilton Industries, requesting emergency meeting about lease terms. "Time's running out, brother," I noted. 40 hours left to sign the new lease or find new headquarters. Though good luck finding Class A office space in this city that I don't own. "You'd really evict us?" "Your own family." "Family." I pulled up a video on my laptop, footage from 5 years ago, the day they'd thrown me out. "Watch this, Thomas. Watch how you treated family." The video played. Dad screaming that I was worthless, Thomas blocking my access to business contacts, Rebecca laughing as security escorted me out. "That's not who we are anymore," he protested weakly. "No," I agreed. "Now you're my tenants. And tenants need to pay market rate." Another crash from the construction. Thomas winced. "Better get back to your crisis meeting," I suggested. "Oh, and tomorrow the crews start on the plumbing. Hope you don't mind cold showers in the executive bathroom." As he left, Michael entered with more updates. "Their board is demanding an emergency session. 3 vice presidents have resigned. And their biggest client just called. They're re-evaluating their relationship with Hamilton Industries. Send them my standard response," I instructed. "Shadow Ridge Properties values all its tenants equally. Market rate is non-negotiable." My phone buzzed again. "Dad, you win. Name your price." I typed back, "Already did. It's in the lease agreement." Tick-tock. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's becoming their landlord and renovating their worldview, one jackhammer at a time. As the 48-hour deadline approached, I watched Hamilton Industries unravel through my network of cameras. Employees whispered in corners, executives made frantic phone calls, and moving companies delivered stacks of boxes, just in case. "Final count," Michael reported. "Stock down 47% since Monday. 4 major clients suspended contracts. And the board has called for an emergency vote of no confidence in your father's leadership." I sipped my coffee, savoring each update. "And the media?" He handed me his tablet. The business networks were having a field day. Hamilton Empire crumbles under property pressure. Like father, unlike daughter. The Amanda Ridge success story. Real estate prodigy turns tables on family dynasty. A knock at my door interrupted our morning briefing. Rebecca stood there, looking decidedly less polished than usual. "The prodigal sister returns." I gestured for her to enter. "Sleep well? The construction noise starts quite early, doesn't it?" We need to talk, she sat down, dark circles under her eyes. About the past, about now, about fixing this. Fixing. I raised an eyebrow. There's nothing to fix. The situation is quite simple. Sign the new lease or vacate. You know it's not that simple. She leaned forward. Dad's having a heart attack. I paused, studying her face for signs of manipulation. Really? Or is this another Hamilton family performance? He collapsed an hour ago. Thomas is with him at Mount Sinai. She pulled out her phone, showing me hospital photos. The doctors say it's stress-induced. How unfortunate. I kept my voice neutral. Though I seem to recall no one visiting me in the hospital after my car accident 3 years ago. The one caused by working 3 jobs to build my company after you blacklisted me. We were wrong, Rebecca whispered. So wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. I pulled up more security footage. Remember this? My graduation day when Dad said my real estate degree was a waste of good Hamilton genes. Or this. The day Thomas convinced the board not to lease office space to my first company. We can't change the past, she pleaded. No, but we can certainly pay for it. In market rate rent, specifically. My phone buzzed, the hospital confirming Dad's admission. Cardiac episode, serious but stable. He's asking for you, Rebecca said quietly. Of course he is. Now that he needs something. I stood straightening my suit. The deadline remains. 30 hours left. The company will collapse without those buildings. Then perhaps Dad should have thought about that before teaching his children that real estate is power. I smiled. Though he only taught that lesson to you and Thomas. I had to learn it myself. Michael walked in. The board voted. Your father is suspended as CEO until the property issue is resolved. Rebecca's phone buzzed, but she kept her eyes on me. What do you really want, Amanda? Beyond raising rent, what's your goal? I looked out the window at workers replacing the Hamilton Industries sign. I want Dad to wake up knowing his worthless daughter owns his world. I want Thomas to remember my wasted degree when he pays rent. I want you to think about loyalty every time you hear construction tearing your comfort apart. And then, she asked. Then I keep building my empire while you all work in my buildings, paying my rates, living in my shadow. My phone buzzed. Dad's doctor. Urgent. Tell Thomas I'll see Dad tomorrow, after you sign the new leases. You're blackmailing us while Dad's in the hospital? No, I'm doing business. The same way you all did when you ruined mine. Rebecca left. Michael returned. Hamilton stock trading is halted. Delay construction? He asked. No, I smiled. Add a night shift. I want them to hear exactly what worthless sounds like. Sometimes the best revenge is success that keeps your enemies awake at night. The text message glowed on my phone screen like a burning bridge. You're not welcome here anymore. Don't come to Sunday dinner. Your choices have embarrassed this family enough. I sat in my private office on the 50th floor of the Anderson Tower, no relation to my family name, though that irony would soon become delicious, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. Below, tiny figures hustled through the early December chill, unaware that one of the biggest corporate takeovers in recent history was about to unfold. My father's text wasn't surprising. Last night's family dinner had been the final straw, the moment I refused to accept a rescue package position at Anderson Global, their precious family company. A company that, unknown to them, was already mine. You're throwing your life away. Dad had shouted, his face red with rage, sterling silverware rattling as his fist hit the mahogany dining table. 10 years of wandering around doing God knows what, and now you refuse a VP position handed to you on a silver platter? Mom had dabbed her eyes with an embroidered napkin, ever the perfect picture of maternal disappointment. Michael darling, we just want what's best for you. You're 35, unmarried, and what do you have to show for it? At least with Anderson Global you'd have stability, respect. They only knew. The wandering years they lamented had been spent building Shadow Peak Ventures, now one of the most powerful private equity firms in the world. We operated in absolute secrecy, using layers of shell companies and private holdings. Our acquisitions were swift, silent, and absolute. And Anderson Global? I'd been buying their shares through various fronts for the past 3 years. Last week we'd finally secured the controlling interest. The board meeting scheduled for Monday would announce the new ownership. and the complete restructuring of the company. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dad. Your mother's crying. I hope you're happy with yourself. Some son you turned out to be. I smiled, remembering all the family dinners over the years. The constant comparisons to my cousins who took respectable corporate jobs. The thinly veiled disappointment when I left my junior position at a prestigious firm to find myself. The whispers about how the Anderson name was being wasted on me. Mr. Anderson? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. The board packets for Monday have been prepared. Would you like to review them? Bring them in, Jessica. She entered, carrying a stack of leather portfolios. Each contained the detailed restructuring plan for Anderson Global, including the new organizational chart. My parents' names were notably absent from the executive level. The press release is ready too, Jessica added. We'll distribute it Monday at 9 a.m., right as the board meeting begins. I opened one of the portfolios, admiring the clean lines of the new company logo. Shadow Peak's acquisition of Anderson Global would be our first public move, our emergence from the shadows. The business world would finally know who we were, and my parents would finally understand what their wayward son had built. A notification popped up on my computer. Dad had just sent a company-wide email announcing an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. The subject line read, "Critical announcement, attendance mandatory." He had no idea he'd just invited me to my own coronation. My phone rang. It was my younger sister Emma, the only family member who knew the truth. She kept my secret for years, watching our parents' treatment of me with growing disgust. "They're really done it this time, haven't they?" she said when I answered. "Mom just called, crying about how you've rejected the family legacy and thrown away your last chance." "How dramatic of her," I replied, scanning the restructuring documents. "Will you be at the board meeting Monday?" "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Emma laughed. "I've already planned my outfit for when their worlds implode. But Michael, are you sure about this? It's going to destroy them." I thought back to every dismissive comment, every comparison to more successful relatives, every lecture about responsibility and family legacy. I remembered Dad's words from my college graduation. "The business world will eat you alive, son. You don't have what it takes." "They destroyed themselves, I said quietly. They were so busy mourning the son they wanted that they never saw who I actually was. Monday just makes it official. My computer pinged with another email, the final confirmation from our lawyers. Shadow Peak Ventures now officially owned 51% of Anderson Global's shares. The company my grandfather had built, that my father had grown, and that they'd never thought I was worthy of, was mine. I pulled up the morning's financial reports. Anderson Global's stock had been declining steadily for years under my father's outdated leadership. Their market share was shrinking, their technology lagging decades behind. The company needed a complete overhaul, exactly what Shadow Peak specialized in. "Jessica," I called through the intercom. "Please make sure my suit for Monday is ready." "The charcoal Tom Ford. The one we had tailored last week?" "Already done, sir. And the car will be ready at 8 a.m. Monday to take you to Anderson Global headquarters." I looked at the family photo on my desk, taken 10 years ago, right before I left to start my own path. Dad stood proud in his Anderson Global CEO pose, Mom perfectly coiffed beside him. They looked so certain of their world, so secure in their assumptions about success and failure. Monday would change everything. My phone buzzed one final time. "Mom, we only wanted what was best for you. One day you'll understand that running away from responsibility isn't the answer." I placed the phone face down, turning to watch the sunset paint Manhattan in shades of gold. In my reflection on the window, I saw not the failure my parents imagined, but the architect of their company's future. Monday couldn't come soon enough. Monday morning arrived with the weight of destiny. I stood in my penthouse dressing room, adjusting my Tom Ford tie, a subtle power move as it cost more than my father's entire wardrobe. The news channels buzzed in the background, financial analysts speculating about the mysterious trading activity around Anderson Global's stock. "Shadow Peak Ventures remains the market's greatest enigma," a CNBC analyst was saying. "Their acquisitions are legendary, but nobody knows who runs it." Today's Anderson Global board meeting has sparked rumors of another major takeover. My phone lit up with messages from board members, old friends of my father, mostly, all desperately trying to understand why their secure shares had been quietly transferred to unknown entities over the past 3 years. None of them had bothered to look closely at the shell companies and holding firms I'd created. They were too comfortable, too certain of their position. Just like my parents. Emma called as I was getting into the car. "Mom and Dad are already at the office," she reported. "Dad's practically having a meltdown. They've discovered that most of the board members have sold their shares to unknown parties. He's called in every lawyer and financial advisor he knows." "How's Mom taking it?" I asked, watching the city scroll past my tinted windows. "Oh, she's in full crisis mode. Called me at dawn asking if I knew anything about corporate raiders or hostile takeovers. The irony of her asking her children who know nothing about business for help is just..." Emma's laugh was sharp and satisfied. The car pulled up to Anderson Global's headquarters, a dated building that desperately needed modernization, like everything else about my father's company. Security guards nodded respectfully, not recognizing me as the band's son but seeing only a powerful-looking executive in a perfect suit. In the elevator I checked my watch. 8:45 a.m. In 15 minutes the press release would go live, and Shadow Peak's ownership of Anderson Global would become public knowledge. But first I had a board meeting to attend. I could hear the chaos before I reached the boardroom. Raised voices, shuffling papers, the distinctive sound of my father's authoritative tone trying to maintain control of a situation already far beyond his grasp. "We need to identify these shareholders immediately," he was saying as I approached. "Anderson Global has been a family company for 3 generations. We can't let some corporate raider..." I opened the boardroom doors. The conversation died instantly. 20 faces turned to stare at me, board members, executives, lawyers, and my parents, all seated at the massive mahogany table that had witnessed decades of my father's reign. "Michael." Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here? This is a private board meeting." "Actually," I said, walking to the head of the table, my father's usual seat, "I have every right to be here. In fact, I called this meeting." Dad stood up, his face flushing. "This is ridiculous. Security." "Sit down, Dad," I said quietly, placing my briefcase on the table. "You'll want to hear this." The room's screens lit up simultaneously, displaying Shadow Peak's logo. Right on schedule, my phone buzzed with notifications. The press release was live. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, enjoying the growing horror on my father's face. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, Shadow Peak Ventures owns a controlling interest in Anderson Global. As founder and CEO of Shadow Peak, I'm here to discuss the company's new direction." The silence was absolute. I could actually hear my mother's pearl necklace click against the table as she slumped forward. "You're Shadow Peak?" Dad's voice cracked. "That's impossible. Shadow Peak is a multi-billion-dollar..." He stopped, understanding finally dawning. "Indeed," I smiled, opening my briefcase. "Those wandering years you so often criticized? I was building one of the most successful private equity firms in the world. While you were telling everyone I was finding myself, I was orchestrating acquisitions larger than Anderson Global's entire market cap. I distributed the restructuring documents. You'll find your retirement packages on page 3. They're quite generous. I'm not completely heartless. Though considering how you've treated me for the past decade, perhaps I should be." Dad's hands shook as he flipped through the papers. "This is a joke. It has to be a joke. The same joke that acquired Pacific Industries last year? Or maybe you mean the Thompson Group takeover." I leaned forward. "Oh wait. You called those masterful business moves at last month's dinner, didn't you? Right before telling me I wouldn't understand such complex transactions." Board members were whispering among themselves, some already reaching for their phones to call their brokers. They could see the writing on the wall, Anderson Global, as they knew it was over. "Michael," Mom tried, tears streaming down her face, "we're your parents. You can't just..." "Can't what, Mom? Succeed beyond your narrow definition of success? Build something bigger than Dad's precious family company? Or do you mean I can't fire you? Because actually I can do all of those things." I stood up, buttoning my jacket. "The press conference is in an hour. New management team takes over this afternoon. Don't worry, your personal belongings will be packed and delivered to your homes." "You'll regret this," Dad said, but his voice held no power anymore. "The board won't stand for it. The board. I laughed. Look around, Dad. They've already accepted their severance packages. While you were talking, they were signing their resignation letters. He looked around the table, seeing former allies already walking toward the door, their loyalty worth exactly the price of their golden parachutes. One more thing, I added, turning back at the door. About Sunday dinner. I'm afraid I'll have to cancel. I have a company to run. The next 24 hours transformed Anderson Global, and my family, forever. The press conference exploded across financial media. Shadow Peak Ventures reveals mysterious founder in stunning Anderson Global takeover. CNBC ran special segments on the hidden billionaire, who built an empire in secret. Wall Street Journal's headline read, "Prodigal Son Returns, the greatest corporate sleight of hand in decades." I watched the chaos unfold from my new office, formerly my father's sanctuary for 30 years. The modern furniture and technology I'd ordered were being installed, erasing decades of outdated luxury. The oil painting of my grandfather that had hung behind the desk was being replaced with a digital art wall. The old making way for the new in every sense. Emma arrived around noon, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a triumphant smile. "Well, dear brother, you've certainly outdone yourself. Have you seen social media? Mom's country club friends are having collective meltdowns. All those years they spent pitying her for having such a disappointing son. How are they taking it?" I asked, though I could guess. Dad's locked himself in his study. Mom's been calling everyone she knows, trying to explain how she always believed in you and supported your dreams. Emma rolled her eyes, pouring champagne into crystal glasses. The cognitive dissonance is astounding. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Please, Michael. We need to talk. We're still family." Family. The word had been a weapon they'd wielded against me for years. Family obligation. Family legacy. Family disappointment. "Mr. Anderson," my assistant interrupted through the intercom, "your parents are in the lobby demanding to see you. Security would like instructions." I considered for a moment. "Send them up. It's time to finish this." They arrived looking like ghosts of their former selves. Dad's perfectly pressed suits and Mom's designer outfits couldn't hide their shattered confidence. They stood in my new office, surrounded by the physical manifestation of their failed assumptions. 10 minutes, I said, not offering them seats. "That's all I can spare between transforming your failed company into something profitable." "Failed company?" Dad's face reddened. "I built this. Into a dinosaur." I cut him off. "Your technology is obsolete. Your management structure is from the 1980s. You've lost market share every quarter for 5 years. The only thing keeping your stock price up was my quiet acquisition of shares." Mom stepped forward, tears ready. "Darling, we only wanted what's best for me." "Oh, you wanted what was best for your image. The perfect son in the perfect position following the perfect path. Did you ever even once ask what I wanted? We gave you everything." Dad exploded. "Private schools, connections, opportunities. You gave me everything except respect," I replied calmly. "Every success I had that didn't fit your narrative was dismissed. Every achievement that didn't match your plan was ignored. So I stopped telling you about them." I pulled up financial documents on the wall screen. Shadow Peak Ventures, founded 7 years ago. Current value, $12.8 billion. Portfolio companies in technology, healthcare, real estate. Operations in 12 countries. All built while you were telling people I was finding myself. They stared at the numbers, the empire their failure son had built. "The night you told me I'd never understand real business?" I continued. "I had just closed a $3 billion acquisition. When you offered me that insulting VP position. I owned companies bigger than Anderson Global. Every dinner where you compared me to my successful cousins, I was making moves that will be taught in business schools. Why didn't you tell us?" Mom whispered. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have tried to take control like you did with everything else in my life?" The Los Angeles skyline glittered through the penthouse windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel, the crown jewel of my global hospitality empire, though my family still thought I was just a struggling hotel consultant. If they only knew that their precious Henderson Hotels was just one small piece in my much larger collection. "Ms. Sullivan," my executive assistant Michael appeared with a stack of reports. The acquisition of the Asian luxury resorts is complete. We now control 73% of the high-end hospitality market in 6 countries. I nodded, scanning through real-time occupancy data on my tablet. And Henderson Hotel's numbers? Still declining. Their outdated management style is driving away luxury clients. Your parents' insistence on running it the old way is killing their reputation. A bitter smile crossed my face as I remembered my last conversation with them 3 years ago. I'd presented a comprehensive modernization plan for Henderson Hotels, AI integration, sustainable luxury initiatives, personalized guest experiences. Ideas that were now making billions for my own hotel chain. "This is a family business," Dad had declared, barely glancing at my proposal. "We don't need trendy gimmicks from someone who's never even run a single hotel." Mother had been even worse. "Darling, why don't you stick to your little consulting work? Leave the real hospitality business to those who understand it." Now their real hospitality business was hemorrhaging money, while my trendy gimmicks had built the Sullivan Group into the fastest-growing luxury hotel chain in the world. "Michael," I called out, "show me the latest guest satisfaction scores for Henderson Hotels." The holographic display flickered to life, showing plummeting ratings. Down 40% in the last quarter alone. Their flagship property in Beverly Hills is particularly problematic. And our undercover audit? Complete disaster. He handed me another tablet. Outdated technology, untrained staff, maintenance issues. They're one bad review away from losing their 5-star rating. I scrolled through photos of worn carpets and dated decor, each image validating my secret purchases of Henderson Hotels stock through various shell corporations. We now owned 48%, just shy of controlling interest. "Your father called again," Michael mentioned carefully. "He wants to know if you'll attend their annual hotel awards ceremony next week. Apparently, they're giving your brother the Innovation in Hospitality Award." I couldn't help but laugh. My brother Tom, whose idea of innovation was changing the minibar snacks, was getting an award while my multi-billion-dollar innovations were revolutionizing the industry. "Confirm my attendance," I said, standing to look out over the city. "And make sure all our pieces are in place. It's time to end this charade." "Everything's prepared," Michael assured me. "The final stock purchase will go through during the ceremony itself. Our legal team is ready and the press releases are drafted." My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Please dress appropriately for the ceremony. This is a prestigious event, not one of your casual consulting meetings." I glanced down at my bespoke Chanel suit and Louboutin heels, worth more than a year's stay in their presidential suite. "Tell them I'll do my best to look presentable." The week leading up to the ceremony passed in a carefully orchestrated blur. Each move calculated, each detail perfected. By the time my driver pulled up to the Henderson Grand Hotel, soon to be mine, we owned 49.9% of Henderson Hotels. "Miss Sullivan," the front desk manager greeted me nervously. He'd probably been warned about the disappointing daughter. "Your parents requested you use the side entrance." "That won't be necessary," I smiled, striding through the lobby I'd soon be renovating. "I'm exactly where I should be." The ballroom was filled with the elite of the hospitality industry, many of whom actually worked for me through my various holdings. If my family had bothered to look closer, they'd have noticed how many of their independent luxury partners were actually Sullivan Group properties. "Victoria." Tom's voice boomed across the room. "Come to see your successful brother's big moment?" I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter, noting the cheap vintage. Another detail that would soon change. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, checking my phone as another alert came through. Our final stock purchase was processing. In exactly 20 minutes, Henderson Hotels would have a new owner. The stage was set. The players were in position. And my family was about to learn that their struggling consultant had built an empire right under their noses. "Michael," I whispered into my earpiece, "is everything ready?" "All systems go," he confirmed. "The takeover begins at your signal." I smiled, watching my parents work the room, completely unaware that their reign over Henderson Hotels was about to end. "Then let's give them a night they'll never forget." The Henderson Grand Hotel's ballroom dripped with dated opulence, crystal chandeliers that hadn't been updated in decades, gold trim that had lost its luster. Every flaw screamed for the renovation I'd already planned. Victoria, darling, Mother Air kissed my cheeks, her eyes narrowing at my Cartier jewelry. How unexpected to see you here. And wearing such expensive pieces. Your consulting must be going better than we thought. If she only knew that I could buy her entire jewelry collection with my morning coffee budget. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad's voice boomed from the podium. Welcome to the 35th Annual Henderson Hotels Excellence Awards. I checked my phone, 18 minutes until the stock transfer completed. Right in the middle of Tom's acceptance speech. Your brother's done remarkable things, Mother gushed, gesturing to Tom who was preening at a nearby table. Did you know he increased room service profits by changing the menu font? I bit back a laugh, thinking of the AI-driven personalized dining experience I'd implemented across my hotels, increasing revenue by 300%. Miss Sullivan, Michael's voice whispered through my discreet earpiece. Final contracts are being signed. And, interesting development. The 5-Star Association is here. I spotted them, the delegation that determined luxury hotel ratings. Perfect timing, considering I'd anonymously sent them a detailed report about Henderson Hotel's declining standards last week. And now, Dad continued, the moment we've all been waiting for. The Innovation in Hospitality Award goes to my son, Thomas Henderson, for his groundbreaking improvements to our guest experience. Tom strutted to the stage as scattered applause filled the room. I noticed several industry veterans, secretly my employees, hiding their smirks behind champagne glasses. Thank you, Tom began. As everyone knows, innovation is the heart of Henderson Hotels. Our traditional values. My phone vibrated. The stock transfer was complete. I now owned 51% of Henderson Hotels. Time for the show to begin. Michael, I whispered. Execute Protocol Alpha. Suddenly, every screen in the ballroom flickered. The outdated Henderson Hotels logo dissolved, replaced by real-time performance metrics. Plummeting satisfaction scores. Declining revenues. Failed inspections. What's happening? Dad demanded, rushing to the podium as Tom stood frozen mid-speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood, my voice carrying across the now silent room. I believe we need to discuss some concerning trends in Henderson Hotel's performance. Victoria, sit down. Mother hissed. You're embarrassing the family. Am I? I smiled, walking toward the stage. Or am I finally showing the truth about what this family has done to a once great hotel chain? The screens changed again, showing more damning statistics. Under current management, Henderson Hotels has lost 40% of its luxury market share. Guest complaints have tripled. 3 properties are at risk of losing their 5-star rating. How dare you? Dad's face had turned purple. Security. Remove her. I wouldn't do that, I said calmly, nodding to Michael, who distributed folders to the stunned audience. As the majority shareholder of Henderson Hotels, I have every right to be here. The silence was deafening. Mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Tom's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish. Majority shareholder? Dad whispered. Perhaps you should have paid more attention to your stock registry, I suggested. Sullivan Global Ventures has been acquiring shares for months. As of 3 minutes ago, we own 51% of Henderson Hotels. Sullivan Global. One of the 5-star delegates stood up. The luxury hotel group that's revolutionizing the industry. The same, I smiled. Though my family knows it better as my little consulting business. This is impossible, Tom stammered. You're just a consultant. Actually, brother dear, I'm the CEO of the largest luxury hotel consortium in the world. While you were changing menu fonts, I built an empire. And now, I gestured to the screens showing my company's portfolio. I'm going to save Henderson Hotels from your incompetence. The room erupted in chaos. Industry veterans pulled out phones, frantically calling investors. The 5-star delegation huddled together, reviewing my documentation. Mother had collapsed into a chair, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. You can't do this, Dad's voice shook. This is our family legacy. Was your family legacy, I corrected him. Now it's part of mine. And trust me, I have much bigger plans than changing menu fonts. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new office, formerly my father's sanctuary at Henderson Hotel's headquarters. In the week since the awards ceremony, the hospitality world hadn't stopped buzzing about the takeover. Hotel heiress reveals secret empire, and consulting queen's billion-dollar revenge dominated industry headlines. The transition team is ready, Michael announced, entering with a stack of documents. And the press is assembled in the main conference room for your first official announcement as CEO of Henderson Hotels. I stood at the window watching the city wake up. The view would be better after the renovation. I'd already approved plans to add 20 stories to the building. Any word from the family? Your mother's been calling hourly. Your father's lawyers tried to challenge the stock purchase. Our legal team shut them down in minutes. And Tom? Michael smirked. He's still trying to access his executive suite. His keycard stopped working last night. Speaking of access, I turned from the window. Has security finished the sweep of all Henderson properties? Complete. We found exactly what you predicted: outdated systems, security vulnerabilities, and, he handed me a tablet, interesting financial discrepancies in your brother's expense reports. I scanned the numbers, each line item confirming what I'd suspected. While Tom had been accepting awards for changing fonts, he'd also been embezzling from the company. Perfect ammunition for the board meeting later today. Ms. Sullivan, my secretary's voice came through the intercom. Your parents are here. They don't have an appointment, but they're demanding to see you. I smiled, straightening my Versace suit. Send them in. It's time they see how a real hotel empire is run. They burst into the office like a storm, mother in her outdated Chanel, father red-faced and blustering, Tom trailing behind them looking lost without his executive privileges. How dare you change the security codes? Father slammed his hands on my desk. This is still Henderson Hotels. Actually, I sat calmly, pressing a button that dropped massive screens from the ceiling. This is now Sullivan Global at Henderson Tower. Though that name will change once the rebranding is complete. The screens lit up with my comprehensive renovation plans, not just for the building, but for the entire Henderson Hotels chain. Modern designs, sustainable technology, AI-driven guest experiences, and staffing overhauls filled the displays. You're destroying everything we built, Mother whispered, sinking into a chair. No, I'm saving it. Your quarterly reports. I tossed a folder across the desk. Guest satisfaction down 40%. Occupancy rates barely hitting 60%. 3 properties about to lose luxury status. You weren't building anything, you were riding our grandfather's legacy into the ground. Those numbers are confidential. Tom protested. Nothing is confidential from the majority owner, I smiled. Including your creative expense reports, brother dear. The board will be particularly interested in those. The color drained from his face. Mother gripped her pearls while father seemed to age years in seconds. The board, he straightened his shoulders. They'll never support this hostile takeover. Really? I pressed another button, and the screens showed live feeds from every Henderson Hotel lobby around the world. Watch carefully. As we stared at the screens, each property's signage simultaneously transformed, Henderson's dated logo dissolving into Sullivan Global's modern brand. The change rippled across time zones, a wave of transformation sweeping from Asia to Europe to the Americas. Impossible, Mother breathed. The cost alone. You mean the $2 billion I spent on modernization? I pulled up the financial reports. A drop in the bucket for Sullivan Global. Would you like to see my company's real numbers? The screens filled with data, my global holdings, revenue streams, market penetration statistics. Each figure more staggering than the last, each success a direct result of the innovations they'd mocked. While you were rejecting my proposals, I stood walking around the desk. I was building the future of luxury hospitality. Smart rooms that learn guest preferences. Environmental systems that cut energy costs by 80%. Staff training programs that set industry standards. Everything you dismissed as trendy gimmicks is now worth billions. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Michael announced from the doorway. All members are present, including the 5-Star Association representatives. Perfect timing, I smiled. Today we'll vote on the complete restructuring of Henderson Hotels. New management, new directions, new standards. You can't just erase us, Father's voice cracked. This company is our life. Was your life, I corrected him. Now it's part of something bigger. Something better. Though you're welcome to stay on as minority shareholders, under certain conditions. I handed them each a contract. Sign these and you'll retain small stakes in the company. Refuse and I'll buy out your remaining shares at market value, which given recent performance isn't much. This is blackmail, Tom sputtered, reading the terms. This is business, I replied. The kind you never understood. Now shall we head to the board meeting? I believe they're eager to hear about your innovative menu fonts. The next hour was a blur of presentations, votes and signatures. By the time the press conference began, Henderson Hotels had new leadership, new direction and a new future. The family's resistance crumbled as board members enthusiastically endorsed my plans, especially after seeing Tom's expense reports. As cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, I caught my family's broken expressions in the corner. Father looked defeated, Mother quietly dabbed her eyes and Tom stood shell-shocked, his empire of mediocrity collapsed around him. Miss Sullivan, a reporter called out, what made you decide to take over your family's company? I thought about all the dismissed proposals, the mocked innovations, the years of underestimation. Let's just say, I smiled directly at my family, sometimes the best way to preserve a legacy is to reinvent it completely. Later that evening, as the city lights twinkled below my office, Michael brought in the international press coverage. Every headline told the same story. Hotel heiress's secret empire revolutionizes industry. Your mother left this, he said quietly, placing an envelope on my desk. Inside was a short note. We were wrong. All these years we were so wrong. Please can we talk? Mom. I slipped the note into my drawer, turning back to the renovation plans on my desk. They'd have to wait. I had an empire to rebuild. Michael, I called out, schedule the global management meeting for tomorrow. And book the presidential suite at our Tokyo property for next week. Family reconciliation? He asked.